The ancient Egyptian lit those tombs with 12 to 14 mirrors. This is how the artist worked within those tombs. They painted winged serpents with the bodies extending the full length of the room in the tombs. This represented the continual rebirth or the immortality of the soul, and the winged serpent was worshipped as a life giver. In Central America, we find a legend of a winged serpent god. He was called by many names: Quetzalcoatl, Kukulkan, Cucamatz, Amaru, and names continue on and on for this winged serpent god. According to the legends, a winged serpent god came from outer space to this earth, set up a kingdom, gave a code of laws, and left and promised to return on a sacred year called Seacatl. The legends say that he was to return to this earth in a reincarnated state as the great white god and set up his kingdom on this earth once again. There are many ruins throughout Central America. On the eastern side of Mexico is the Yucatan. The upper right-hand corner shows an ancient city that was named Chichen Itza. This is one of the most fascinating ruins to visit in Central America. As one travels to Chichen Itza, one can see great pyramids. One of these pyramids is called the Castillo Ziggurat. There is an interesting thing about this pyramid, because the banisters on either side of the stairway are two serpents. It seems that the serpent can be seen everywhere in the religion of the ancient cultures of Central America. A number of years ago, an artist painted this picture of the Castillo Ziggurat. The Temple of the Warriors can be seen at Chichen Itza. At the top of the stairs of this temple, one will find the temple complex. It is very probable that they had human sacrifices on the top of this temple. At the top of the temple, one can see a reclining figure that was called the Chakmul. The Chakmul was like the Pharaoh of Egypt. He was the life giver. He had a plate on his stomach where the hearts of human victims were placed. On either side of the Chakmul were two winged serpents, their heads at the base. The post is the body, and the lintel is the tail. Feathers are carved on the body, and these snakes were called feathered, plumed, or winged serpents. So we find two winged serpents on either side of the life-giver in Central America, just like we find in Egypt with the winged serpents on either side of King Tut, the one that was worshipped as the life-giver of the Egyptians. This is a basic plan that we find throughout the temple system of Central America. Notice the reclining figure, the Chakmul, called the life-giver, and two winged serpents on either side of the so-called life-giver of Central America. Notice the plate on the stomach. It was here where the hearts of the victims were placed. Those winged serpents acted as covering cherubs, just as winged serpents acted as covering cherubs for the pharaohs of Egypt. This cannot be just a coincidence. We are beginning to see part of a master counterfeit system of God's truth as it is revealed in His Word. This counterfeit system stems all the way back to ancient Babylon. Great ball courts can be seen throughout Central America. The carvings on the walls of the ball court tell the story of the games that were played. Here we see serpents with wings carved on them that extend the full length of the wall. Two walls in these ball courts. There were 14 players, 7 on each side. They had a rubber ball about 9 inches in diameter. The first side to get the ball through the hoop won. The hoops were about 18 feet up on the walls. We can only imagine what these ball games were like. The people shouting, the players trying as hard as they could to get that ball through the hoop, because the side that lost, according to some authorities, were made sacrifices to the winged serpent god that were carved on each wall of the ball court. The winged serpent god, lusting for human sacrifice in Central America. Could it be that the Maya were not the only ones that walked in this temple area to see the magnificent temples and the courts and the great Castillo ziggurat? Is it possible that northern Europeans came to the Yucatan sometime between 900 and 1100 AD? This was the time when the Vikings roamed the uncharted seas. Recent discoveries show that the Vikings landed on the shores of the American continent. It is possible that the Vikings came to Central America long before the time of Columbus. Their ships were beautifully designed and very seaworthy. Let us see what the pagan teachings of the Vikings reveal. Let us travel to the land of the midnight sun, the land of Scandinavia. It is a land of unmatched beauty. The fjords of Norway seem to be nestled like jewels in the midst of snow-clad mountains. Fishermen pull in their nets, filled with fish from the deep, cold waters. Even in the land of the midnight sun, we can see dragons and serpents in the religion of the Vikings. Outside the city of Oslo in Norway, there is a church that the Scandinavians call a Stav church. This church has carved dragon heads on its eaves. They even have made the shingles to look like the scales of a dragon. If one looks carefully, one can see winged serpents carved in the wood of this old dragon church of the Vikings when they claimed to accept Christianity. In Scandinavia, several ship burials have been found. One of the most famous finds is the Osborg ship that can be seen in a museum in Oslo, Norway. An interesting thing about this ship is that it was made in the form of a serpent. On the prow, the forms of a serpent's head with glowing eyes was carved. The body of the ship formed the body of a serpent, and the stern of the ship ended in the tail of a serpent. Even the shields on the side of the ship were overlapped, appearing like scales of a serpent. In ancient cultures, sails were associated with wings. So when one sees the Osborg ship, the form of a winged serpent appears. Records show that the Vikings actually worshipped a winged serpent god. When the Vikings traveled and traded, they used their serpent ships. But when they went to war, they used their dragon ships. They placed a dragon head on the bow of the ship. And when they came to the different countries, they acted as a dragon. They were destroyers. When people saw the Viking ships coming with those dragon heads, they cried out, "Deliver us from the Vikings." The Vikings were demon worshippers, and they destroyed everything and everybody in sight when they came with their dragon